The year was 1993. Summer shimmered with endless possibilities. My backpack was packed with anticipation for the annual camping trip to Redwood National Park. I could practically smell the crisp mountain air, feel the rough bark of ancient trees against my skin. This year was different. This year, excitement crackled in the air like static electricity. This year I felt an unsettling sense of premonition. The journey was long, the old Jeep groaning under the weight of our laughter and dreams. Eva, with her infectious laugh and thirst for adventure, kept the energy high. Steve, quiet and observant, balanced her boundless energy with his calm demeanor. They were more than friends, they were my chosen family. We finally arrived at our usual spot, a clearing bathed in the golden light filtering through the towering redwoods. A sense of familiarity washed over me, comforting and grounding. But beneath it, the unsettling premonition lingered, a shadow in the bright sunlight. The air itself seemed to hum with an unseen energy. As we set up camp, unpacking tents and hauling firewood, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different, that the familiar forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. I pushed the thought away, attributing it to pre-trip excitement and the overwhelming power of the ancient forest. Ava, a whirlwind of energy, was already unpacking her backpack, her signature bandana holding back her unruly curls. Her eyes, bright with mischief and a thirst for the unknown, darted around the familiar campsite. She radiated an almost tangible excitement, her energy infectious. I couldn't help but smile, her enthusiasm momentarily chasing away the shadows in my mind. Steve, as always, was the epitome of calm, his movements measured and precise as he set about erecting the tent. He moved with a quiet grace that belied his strength. His steady presence was a reassuring anchor in the whirlwind of Eva's enthusiasm and my own growing unease. We had been friends since childhood, our lives intertwined like the roots of the ancient trees surrounding us. Sharing stories and jokes, we fell into a comfortable rhythm, the years melting away as we became kids again, free from the weight of responsibility and expectations. We were explorers, adventurers, the dense forest our playground. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, we gathered around the crackling fire. The flames painted our faces in flickering orange light, the warmth a comforting contrast to the growing chill in the air. Our laughter echoed through the silent trees, momentarily dispelling the strange tension that had settled over me. The next day dawned bright and clear, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink as the sun began its ascent. The air was alive with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, a refreshing reminder of nature's raw beauty. Eva, ever the adventurer, suggested a hike to the hidden swimming hole we had discovered on a previous trip. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and soon we were all geared up and ready to go. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, a crystal-clear pool fed by a cascading waterfall, hidden deep within the heart of the forest. The memory of its serene waters had stayed with us, calling us back. We followed a barely there path, sunlight filtering through the dense canopy above, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. The trail was narrow and winding, but the promise of the swimming hole kept us moving forward. The air grew cooler, the scent of damp earth stronger as we neared our destination. The forest seemed to close in around us, the trees standing tall and silent like ancient guardians. As we rounded a bend in the trail, the sound of rushing water reached our ears, growing louder with each step. It was a comforting sound, a promise of the refreshing dip that awaited us. The swimming hole was just as breathtaking as I remembered. The water shimmered invitingly, an oasis of calm in the midst of the forest's wild embrace. The water shimmered, an impossible shade of turquoise, reflecting the clear blue sky above. It was a scene straight out of a dream, too perfect to be real. Without hesitation, Eva stripped down to her swimsuit and launched herself into the water. Her laughter echoed through the trees, a sound of pure joy and freedom. "Last one in's a rotten egg!" she yelled, her voice echoing off the surrounding rock walls. It was a challenge none of us could resist. I hesitated for a moment, a strange sense of foreboding washing over me. It was as if the forest itself was whispering a warning, urging me to stay back. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that the idyllic scene before me was merely a facade, a thin veil concealing something dark and unknown. The beauty of the place seemed almost too perfect, too pristine. I glanced at Steve, but he seemed unfazed, already stripping off his shirt. His carefree attitude was reassuring, and I tried to push my unease aside. Shaking off my unease, I took a deep breath and followed Eva into the cool water. The moment my body hit the surface, a rush of cold enveloped me. invigorating and shocking all at once. The shock of the cold water took my breath away. It was a stark contrast to the warmth of the sun above, a jolt to my senses. I surfaced, gasping for air, my vision momentarily blurred. The world around me seemed to waver, the edges of reality blurring like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. As I wiped the water from my eyes, a sharp pain exploded in my head, sending shockwaves of agony through my skull. It was as if 1,000 needles had been driven into my brain. I cried out, the sound swallowed by the roar of the waterfall. My vision darkened, the pain overwhelming every other sensation. The world spun, the idyllic scene before me dissolving into a dizzying kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. Then, everything went black. The last thing I heard was the distant echo of Eva's laughter, now sounding strangely distorted and far away. When I regained consciousness, the first thing that registered was the smell. It was a jarring assault on my senses, a stark contrast to the serene environment I had been in before. Gone was the clean, crisp scent of pine and damp earth, the kind that fills your lungs with a sense of peace and tranquility. In its place was the stagnant odor of chlorine and mildew, a smell that brought with it a sense of decay and neglect. I opened my eyes, expecting to see the familiar rock walls and cascading waterfall that had always been my sanctuary. Instead, I was met with the sight of peeling paint and cracked concrete, a scene that felt utterly foreign and unsettling. Panic surged through me, cold and sharp, as I realized I was no longer in the familiar embrace of the forest. My heart raced, and my breath came in short, ragged gasps. I sat up, my head throbbing in time with my pulse, and looked around frantically, trying to make sense of my surroundings. Gone was the crystal-clear water of the swimming hole, the place where I had spent countless hours swimming and relaxing. In its place was a murky, algae-filled pool, the water an uninviting shade of green that made my stomach churn. A rusty chain-link fence surrounded the pool, a stark contrast to the natural beauty of the hidden swimming hole. It felt like a prison, trapping me in this nightmarish version of reality. Disoriented and confused, I struggled to my feet, my legs trembling as if they might give out at any moment. My legs felt shaky, like they couldn't quite remember how to support my weight. I called out, "Eva! Steve!" hoping for a familiar voice to answer. I called out again, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar, echoing in the empty space around me. There was no answer, only the echo of my own voice bouncing off the chain-link fence, amplifying my sense of isolation. Panic tightened its grip on my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. Where were my friends? What had happened? And where was I? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. The last thing I remembered was the searing pain in my head, the feeling of falling. But falling where? The memory was hazy, like a half-remembered dream. The swimming hole, the pristine water, the ancient redwoods. It all seemed like a distant dream, a fading memory from another life. It all seemed like a distant dream, a fading memory from another life. The more I tried to grasp it, the more it slipped away, leaving me with a sense of loss and confusion. This place, with its oppressive air of decay and abandonment, felt alien, wrong. It was as if the world had been turned upside down, and I was trapped in this twisted version of reality. The dissonance between what I remembered and what I now saw sent a shiver down my spine. It was a feeling of profound unease, as if I had stepped into a parallel universe. It was as if I had fallen through a crack in reality, tumbled into some distorted reflection of the world I knew. Everything was familiar yet disturbingly different, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. There you are! What happened? You look so different, Ava. One minute you were fine, the next, you seemed like a completely different person. Ava's voice trailed off, a flicker of concern in her eyes. It was as if she was struggling to remember something important. Relief washed over me, momentarily chasing away the fear that had taken root in my chest. At least she was here, standing in front of me. She was here, she was okay. But something was different. Her demeanor, her aura. Everything seemed off. Her voice, usually laced with the lilting accent of her native Ireland, now held the flat vowels of the American Midwest. It was jarring, to say the least. I dismissed it as a trick of my oxygen-starved brain, the after-effects of the fall. Maybe I was just imagining things. But doubt, insidious and persistent, wormed its way into my mind. What if this was more than just a figment of my imagination? Eva's eyes, usually sparkling with mischief and laughter, now held a guarded expression, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. It was unsettling. A flicker of something unreadable in their depths. It was as if she was hiding something important. She reached out, her hand brushing against mine. The touch was familiar yet foreign at the same time. Her touch, usually warm and comforting, now felt cold, almost reptilian. It sent a shiver down my spine. I pulled back instinctively, a shiver running down my spine. "Where's Steve?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. Eva's brow furrowed, her gaze sliding away from mine. "Steve? Who's Steve? Are you feeling all right? Steve? Who's Steve? Are you feeling all right?" Her words struck me like a physical blow. How could she not remember Steve? Her words struck me like a physical blow. How could she not remember Steve? He was our best friend, a constant presence in our lives. How could she not remember Steve? He was our best friend, a constant presence in our lives. I tried to speak, to explain, but the words caught in my throat. He was our best friend, a constant presence in our lives. I tried to speak, to explain, but the words caught in my throat. The world around me swam, the oppressive atmosphere of the abandoned pool pressing down on me like a physical weight. I tried to speak, to explain, but the words caught in my throat. The world around me swam, the oppressive atmosphere of the abandoned pool pressing down on me like a physical weight. The world around me swam, the oppressive atmosphere of the abandoned pool pressing down on me like a physical weight. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed its way up my throat, choking back my words. Something was terribly wrong. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed its way up my throat, choking back my words. Something was terribly wrong, and for the first time, a terrifying thought took root in my mind. What if this wasn't just a figment of my imagination? What if this wasn't just a figment of my imagination? What if this was real? What if this was real? The thought was too terrifying to fully comprehend, but I couldn't shake it off. Something had changed, and I needed to find out what.